The confetti rained down, each piece a tiny shard of what my future was supposed to be. I could taste the champagne, bitter on my tongue, as I watched him kneel, not in front of me, but to the side, towards her. The crowd's gasps were a dull roar in my ears. He was supposed to be mine. The man I was about to marry, declaring his love for another woman, right there, at our wedding, in front of everyone we knew. They all thought I would break. They thought they had won. If you have a brother who would stand by you through anything, subscribe now. It all started so perfectly. Mark and I were the golden couple. High school sweethearts who had defied the odds, navigating college, career changes, and all the other curveballs life threw our way. We built a life together, brick by painstaking brick. A cozy apartment filled with mismatched furniture we'd collected over the years, Sunday morning pancake breakfasts, and dreams whispered into the dark. He was my rock, my confidant, the steady hand I held onto when the world felt like it was spinning out of control. My name is Mila, and I truly believed we were inseparable. Our families intertwined seamlessly, holidays spent together, inside jokes that only we understood, a shared history that seemed unbreakable. His mother treated me like a daughter, his sister like a best friend. I loved them, and I genuinely believed they loved me. We planned our wedding for over a year. Every detail meticulously curated, from the vintage lace on my dress to the hand-picked wildflowers that adorned the tables. It was going to be the perfect day, a celebration of our love, a testament to our unwavering commitment to each other. The invitations were sent, the RSVPs flooded in, the venue was booked, and the dress, oh, the dress. It was everything I had ever dreamed of, a vision of white silk and delicate beading that made me feel like a princess. The bridal showers and bachelorette parties were a whirlwind of laughter and well wishes. I was surrounded by love, or so I thought. The morning of the wedding dawned bright and clear, a perfect omen, I believed. My bridesmaids buzzed around me, their excitement infectious as they helped me with my hair and makeup. My mother's eyes glistened with tears as she helped me into my dress, telling me how beautiful I looked, how proud she was. I felt like I was floating, carried on a cloud of happiness and anticipation. Then, the music started, and I walked down the aisle. I saw Mark standing at the altar, his eyes shining with what I thought was love. He looked handsome in his suit, a nervous smile playing on his lips. I focused on him, blocking out the sea of faces, and my heart swelled with a love so profound it almost took my breath away. I reached the altar, and he took my hand, his touch familiar and comforting. The ceremony began, the officiant's words a blur as I gazed into Mark's eyes. We exchanged vows, promises of forever, words that now rang hollow in my ears. I said I do, my voice filled with emotion, completely unaware of the bomb that was about to explode. As the officiant pronounced us man and wife and instructed Mark to kiss his bride, he didn't lean in towards me. Instead, he cleared his throat, a strange look on his face. He stepped away from me, towards my best friend, Sarah, who was standing in the front row as my maid of honor. He took her hand, and that was when he knelt down and pulled out a ring. The air crackled with disbelief, a collective gasp rippling through the crowd. He looked up at her, his eyes filled with an emotion I had never seen before, and he asked her to marry him. Sarah, her face pale, stammered a yes. The world tilted on its axis. The carefully constructed facade of my perfect life shattered into a million pieces. The man I loved, the man I was about to marry, was declaring his love for another woman, in front of everyone I knew, on what was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. The person I trusted most was one of them. The silence that followed Mark's proposal was deafening, broken only by Sarah's choked sob of acceptance. My mind struggled to process what was happening. It felt like I was trapped in a nightmare, a cruel joke being played out on the grandest stage imaginable. The carefully orchestrated perfection of my wedding day had dissolved into chaos, replaced by a sickening sense of betrayal and humiliation. I stood there, frozen, as Mark slipped the ring onto Sarah's finger, a ring that should have been mine. The guests began to murmur, their faces a mixture of shock, confusion, and morbid curiosity. My parents rushed towards me, their eyes filled with concern, but I couldn't hear them. I couldn't feel them. The world had narrowed down to Mark, Sarah, and the glittering diamond that mocked me from her hand. Without a word, I turned and ran. My pristine white dress billowed behind me as I fled the scene, the sound of my heels clicking against the stone floor echoing in my ears. I didn't stop running until I reached my car, the engine roaring to life as I sped away from the venue, away from the wreckage of my life. I drove aimlessly, tears streaming down my face, blurring the lights of the city into an indistinguishable haze. I didn't know where I was going, only that I needed to escape, to put as much distance as possible between myself and the unbearable pain that threatened to consume me. Eventually, I found myself at the beach, the familiar sound of the waves crashing against the shore a small comfort in the midst of my turmoil. I sat on the sand, the cold seeping through my dress, watching the sun sink below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. It was beautiful, but I couldn't appreciate it. All I could see was Mark's face, his eyes filled with love, but not for me. All I could feel was the sting of Sarah's betrayal, the woman I had considered my sister, now my rival. The days that followed were a blur of grief and disbelief. I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep, I could barely function. My apartment, once a sanctuary filled with happy memories, now felt like a prison, each object a painful reminder of what I had lost. I replayed the events of the wedding day over and over in my mind, searching for clues, for any indication that this was coming. Had I been blind? Had I been so caught up in planning the perfect wedding that I had failed to see the truth? The phone calls and text messages from friends and family were relentless, offering condolences, expressing their shock and outrage. I couldn't bring myself to answer them. I didn't want to talk, I didn't want to explain, I just wanted to be left alone to wallow in my misery. My parents were a constant presence, their concern unwavering, but I pushed them away, unable to bear their pity. I felt like a failure, a fool, exposed and vulnerable for the world to see. Mark tried to contact me, leaving messages on my phone, sending emails, even showing up at my apartment, but I refused to see him. I couldn't face him, not yet. The thought of hearing his voice, of seeing his face, filled me with a rage so intense it frightened me. Sarah, surprisingly, did not reach out. I guess she was enjoying her stolen prize. I spent hours staring at the ceiling, wondering what I had done wrong. Had I not been good enough? Had I not been attentive enough? Had I somehow driven him into Sarah's arms? The questions swirled in my head, a relentless torrent of self-doubt and recrimination. Sleep offered little respite, my dreams haunted by images of Mark and Sarah together, their laughter echoing in my ears. I would wake up in a cold sweat, my heart pounding, the reality of my situation crashing down on me like a tidal wave. I tried to find solace in the things I used to enjoy, reading, watching movies, spending time with friends, but nothing could fill the void. Everything felt tainted, contaminated by the betrayal. Even the simplest tasks, like going to the grocery store or walking down the street, became unbearable, the stares of strangers feeling like judgment. I felt like everyone knew what had happened, that I was the subject of gossip and ridicule. One evening, I finally broke down. I was sitting on my couch, surrounded by empty pizza boxes and discarded tissues, when a wave of despair washed over me, so intense it felt like I was drowning. I sobbed uncontrollably, my body shaking with grief, the pain of physical ache in my chest. It was then, in that moment of utter despair, that something shifted inside me. The tears began to subside, replaced by a cold, hard resolve. I was done feeling sorry for myself. I was done being a victim. I would not let Mark and Sarah destroy me. I would not let them win. I stood up, my legs shaky, and walked to the bathroom. I looked at my reflection in the mirror, my eyes red and swollen, my face pale and gaunt. I barely recognized myself. But beneath the surface, I saw a flicker of something else, a spark of determination, a glint of steel. I straightened my shoulders, took a deep breath, and made a decision. I would not let them see me break. I would not let them see me suffer. I would rebuild my life, brick by painstaking brick, stronger and more resilient than before. And one day, I would make them pay for what they had done. The plan began to formulate in my mind, a slow burn of icy fury. They thought they had gotten away with it, that I would simply disappear, licking my wounds in silence. They were wrong. So very wrong. I would make them regret the day they crossed me. The days bled into weeks, each one a carbon copy of the last, filled with a numbing routine of self-imposed isolation and relentless replays of that horrific day. I lost my job. How could I focus on spreadsheets and conference calls when my entire world had imploded? My boss, sympathetic at first, eventually ran out of patience. "Take the time you need," she'd said, her voice laced with pity, but the unspoken words hung in the air. "But don't expect your job to wait for you forever." The savings I had painstakingly accumulated, the down payment for a future house, dwindled with alarming speed. The walls of my apartment seemed to be closing in, each object a monument to a shattered dream. I stopped answering the phone. I ignored the concerned knocks on my door. The only voice I heard was the relentless monologue in my head, dissecting every moment, every interaction, searching for answers that refused to surface. I was trapped in a vortex of pain, spiraling downwards with no end in sight. One particularly bleak afternoon, I found myself staring out the window, watching the rain lash against the glass. The sky was a dull, oppressive gray, mirroring the landscape of my soul. I felt utterly empty, devoid of hope, devoid of purpose. The thought crossed my mind that maybe it would be easier to just give up, to let the darkness consume me completely. The weight of the betrayal, the humiliation, the sheer injustice of it all, was crushing me, suffocating me. I went to the medicine cabinet and stared at the rows of bottles, each one a potential escape. My hand trembled as I reached for one, the label blurring through my tears. I couldn't do it. I couldn't let them win. As I sat back on the floor, I noticed a small, forgotten box tucked away in the back of the closet. Curiosity overriding my despair, I pulled it out. Inside, I found old photos, letters, and mementos from my childhood. A picture of my grandfather, a man of immense strength and unwavering integrity, caught my eye. He had faced countless hardships in his life, but he had never given up, never lost his spirit. His memory was a jolt. A letter from my grandmother, written shortly before she passed, spoke of resilience, of finding strength in adversity, of never letting anyone steal your joy. I remembered her words of wisdom, her unwavering belief in me, her fierce love that had always been my anchor. A tear traced a path down my cheek, not a tear of despair, but a tear of remembrance, of connection. It was then, in that moment, surrounded by the echoes of my past, that I found a flicker of hope, a spark of defiance. I started small, forcing myself to get out of bed each morning, to shower, to eat something, even if it was just a few bites. I started going for walks, breathing in the fresh air, feeling the sun on my skin. The world outside my apartment was still there, vibrant and alive, indifferent to my pain. I reconnected with old friends, people who had known me before Mark, people who reminded me of who I was, of what I was capable of. Their laughter, their support, their unwavering belief in me, slowly began to chip away at the wall of despair I had built around myself. I started exercising, pushing my body to its limits, channeling my anger and frustration into physical exertion. The endorphins helped to clear my head, to sharpen my focus. I started reading again, losing myself in stories of courage and resilience, of people who had overcome adversity and emerged stronger on the other side. I enrolled in an online course, something I had always wanted to do but never had the time for. It was challenging, stimulating, and it gave me a sense of purpose, a feeling that I was moving forward, not just stagnating in my misery. The nightmares began to fade, replaced by dreams of strength and empowerment. The flashbacks became less frequent, less intense. I started to sleep through the night, waking up feeling rested, not just exhausted. One day, I looked in the mirror and saw a different person staring back at me. The sadness was still there, etched in the lines around my eyes, but there was also a new strength, a new determination. I was still broken, but I was not defeated. I was scarred, but I was not ruined. I was a survivor. It was around this time that I started thinking about Mark and Sarah again, not with the raw, agonizing pain of the early days, but with a cold, calculating detachment. I analyzed their relationship, their personalities, their weaknesses. I started gathering information, discreetly, carefully, piecing together the puzzle of their betrayal. I discovered things I never knew, secrets they had kept hidden, lies they had told. The more I learned, the angrier I became, but it was a controlled anger, a focused anger, an anger that fueled my resolve. I realized that their biggest weakness was their arrogance, their belief that they were untouchable, that they could get away with anything. They had underestimated me. They had assumed that I would simply crumble, that I would never recover. They were wrong. I began formulating a plan, a meticulous, detailed plan, a plan that would expose their lies, their deceit, their treachery. It would take time, it would take patience, it would take careful execution, but I was willing to do whatever it took. This wasn't about revenge. It was about justice. It was about reclaiming my life. It was about showing them that they couldn't destroy me without facing the consequences. I smiled, a cold, hard smile that didn't reach my eyes. The game had just begun. They thought they were untouchable. I smiled, a genuine smile this time, the first in what felt like an eternity. I played their game, acting the part of the wounded ex, the broken woman trying to pick up the pieces. I even ran into Sarah at a local coffee shop, feigning surprise and offering a strained congratulations. "I'm happy for you both," I said, my voice wavering just enough to sound convincing. Inside, I was carefully observing her reaction, cataloging every nuance of her expression. She seemed relieved, almost too relieved, as if she had expected a scene, an outburst. Her guard was down, and that was exactly what I wanted. Meanwhile, I transformed my apartment into a war room. One wall became a massive corkboard covered with photos of Mark and Sarah, connected by a web of red string outlining their relationships, their lies, their secrets. I dove deep into their digital lives, creating fake social media profiles to infiltrate their inner circles, monitoring their posts, their comments, their check-ins. I learned their routines, their habits, their favorite hangouts. I discovered that Mark had a gambling problem, a habit he had managed to keep hidden from me during our entire relationship. He was deeply in debt, owing large sums of money to some unsavory characters. Sarah, on the other hand, had a history of manipulating people, of using her charm and beauty to get what she wanted. She had left a trail of broken hearts and shattered friendships in her wake. The more I learned, the more disgusted I became. It fueled my resolve to make them pay for their actions. I started investing in some equipment, things I never thought I'd need, things that made me feel like I was living in a spy movie. Miniature cameras, voice recorders, GPS trackers. I brushed up on my tech skills, learning how to encrypt data, how to cover my tracks online, how to disappear completely if necessary. I consulted with a former law enforcement officer, a friend of a friend, who provided me with invaluable advice on the legal ramifications of my plan. He warned me about the potential consequences, the risks I was taking, but he also acknowledged the injustice of what had happened to me. He agreed to be my discreet advisor, a silent partner in my quest for retribution. I focused on gathering evidence, concrete evidence that would expose their deceit and shatter their carefully constructed facade. I knew that hearsay and conjecture wouldn't be enough. I needed irrefutable proof. One evening, I managed to plant a hidden camera in Sarah's apartment, disguised as a smoke detector. It was a risky operation, requiring meticulous planning and nerves of steel, but I pulled it off without a hitch. The camera provided me with a constant stream of information, capturing their conversations, their interactions, their private moments. I watched them, listened to them, studied them, like a scientist observing specimens under a microscope. The footage confirmed my suspicions about their true nature. They were callous, manipulative, and utterly devoid of remorse. They laughed about my humiliation, gloated about their victory, and plotted their future together, completely oblivious to the storm that was brewing. I recorded everything, meticulously cataloging each piece of evidence, each incriminating statement. The tension was building, the anticipation almost unbearable. I knew that I was getting closer to the moment of truth, the moment when I would finally unleash my plan. There were close calls, moments when I almost got caught, when my cover was almost blown. One day, Sarah called me out of the blue, inviting me to lunch. I knew it was a trap, a test to see if I was truly as broken as I appeared to be. I accepted the invitation, playing the part of the naive, unsuspecting victim. During lunch, she subtly probed me, asking leading questions about my life, my plans, my state of mind. I deflected her inquiries with vague answers and forced smiles, carefully avoiding any mention of the wedding or their relationship. I could see the frustration in her eyes, the annoyance that I wasn't giving her the satisfaction of seeing me suffer. I left the lunch feeling drained but also exhilarated. I had passed her test, and in doing so, I had lulled her into a false sense of security. Another time, Mark showed up at my apartment unannounced, begging for forgiveness. He claimed that he had made a mistake, that he still loved me, that he wanted to come back. I laughed in his face, a cold, mocking laugh that sent a shiver down his spine. I told him that he was pathetic, that he had destroyed any chance of reconciliation, that I would never forgive him for what he had done. I slammed the door in his face, reveling in the look of shock and despair on his face. I knew that my actions were risky, that they could potentially jeopardize my plan, but I couldn't resist the opportunity to inflict a little bit of pain, to let them know that I was not as weak and defenseless as they thought. The final piece of the puzzle fell into place when I discovered that Mark and Sarah were planning to leave the country, to start a new life together with the money they had stolen from my wedding fund. They had booked flights, secured fake passports, and were preparing to disappear without a trace. That was the final straw. I knew that I had to act quickly, before they could escape justice. The exact day they tried to end me, I exposed the truth. The day I found out about their escape plan, something inside me went cold. It wasn't just anger, it was a clinical, detached resolve. They wouldn't get away. Not now, not ever. The fake passports were their undoing, a desperate attempt at freedom that became their gilded cage. I tracked the flight numbers, the hotels they booked under assumed names, every digital breadcrumb they left behind in their frantic rush to disappear. I even managed to intercept a package delivered to Sarah's apartment. Inside, a hefty sum of cash, no doubt the remainder of the stolen wedding fund. That money was the final nail in their coffin. It was evidence, tangible proof of their premeditated deceit. I replaced the cash with meticulously crafted counterfeit bills, ensuring the serial numbers were flagged in the system. Let them try to spend that. The trap was set. Now, it was time to lure them in. I crafted an email, using a burner account and posing as a representative from a luxury travel agency. Subject line: exclusive offer, dream getaway awaits. I dangled the bait: a 5-star resort in the Maldives, all expenses paid, including private villas, gourmet meals, and exclusive access to pristine beaches. I knew Sarah couldn't resist. The email detailed a fabricated promotion, a couple's retreat designed to pamper and indulge. I mentioned a mandatory orientation meeting at a discreet location in the city, a location I carefully selected, a deserted warehouse on the outskirts of town, far from prying eyes and unwanted attention. It was the perfect stage for my final act. I knew they would be suspicious, but the allure of a free, extravagant vacation would override their caution. Their greed was their weakness, a fatal flaw I was more than willing to exploit. I even included a subtle detail in the email, a reference to a specific type of champagne they both enjoyed, a detail I had gleaned from their social media posts. It was a personal touch, designed to make the offer seem legitimate, irresistible. I hit send, and waited. The silence was deafening. Each tick of the clock was an agonizing reminder of the stakes. If they didn't take the bait, my entire plan would crumble. But I knew Sarah, her insatiable thirst for luxury, her inability to resist a good deal. She wouldn't be able to help herself. The response came within hours. A terse, almost too eager confirmation. "We're interested. Please provide details about the orientation meeting." I smiled. They were walking right into my web. I sent a follow-up email, providing the address of the warehouse, the date and time of the meeting, and a stern warning about punctuality. Due to the exclusive nature of this offer, late arrivals will not be accommodated. I wanted them to feel the pressure, the urgency. I wanted them to be on edge. In the days leading up to the meeting, I meticulously prepared the warehouse. I soundproofed the walls, installed surveillance cameras, and rigged the doors to lock remotely. I wanted to control every aspect of the environment, to ensure that they had no escape. I even planted a few props to add to the ambience: fake travel brochures, promotional banners, and a table set with champagne glasses, strategically placed to catch the light. I wanted them to feel like they were walking into a legitimate travel agency, at least for a few crucial moments. I rehearsed my lines, my movements, every detail of the encounter. I knew that I had to remain calm, composed, in control. Any sign of weakness, any hint of anger, would betray my true intentions. I even practiced my smile, a cold, detached smile that would mask the fury simmering beneath the surface. On the day of the meeting, I arrived at the warehouse hours early, checking and rechecking every detail. I wanted everything to be perfect, flawless. This was my masterpiece, my carefully orchestrated symphony of revenge. As I waited, I felt a strange sense of calm wash over me. The anxiety, the fear, the doubt, all vanished, replaced by a steely determination. I was ready. The car pulled up outside the warehouse, its headlights cutting through the gloom. I watched on the monitor as Mark and Sarah emerged, looking nervous but excited. They approached the entrance, their eyes scanning the deserted street. I took a deep breath and pressed the button to unlock the door. The game was about to begin. As they stepped inside, I cut the lights. They gasped, startled by the sudden darkness. "Hello?" Sarah called out, her voice trembling. "Is anyone there?" I stepped out of the shadows, a single spotlight illuminating my face. Welcome, I said, my voice cold and unwavering. I've been expecting you. What is this? Mark stammered, his eyes darting around the warehouse, searching for an escape. Sarah clung to his arm, her face pale with fear. The spotlight intensified, blinding them. I stepped forward, a USB drive glinting in my hand. This, I said, my voice echoing in the vast space, is your worst nightmare. I plugged the drive into a projector I had set up earlier. A massive screen descended from the ceiling, displaying a slideshow of incriminating evidence, photos of Mark gambling away my money, screenshots of Sarah's manipulative text messages, copies of their fake passports, and recordings of their callous conversations. Their faces crumpled as they watched their carefully constructed facade crumble before their eyes. I let the evidence speak for itself, each image, each recording, a dagger twisting deeper into their hearts. The culmination of their lies, their deceit, projected for them to witness, and for the world to see soon enough. The slideshow ended with a video, a live feed from the hidden camera I had planted in Sarah's apartment. It showed them celebrating their escape plan, toasting to their future, completely unaware that they were being watched. The video ended, and the screen went black. Silence filled the warehouse, broken only by their ragged breathing. You thought you could get away with it, I said, my voice low and menacing. You thought you were untouchable. You were wrong. Mark lunged at me, his face contorted with rage. You psychotic, I sidestepped him easily, years of pent-up anger transforming into calculated agility. Before he could recover, I pressed a button on a remote control. The doors of the warehouse slammed shut, locking them inside. Panic flared in their eyes. Let us out. Sarah screamed, pounding on the door. Let us out right now. I ignored her pleas, my gaze fixed on Mark. Remember our wedding day, Mark? I asked, my voice dripping with sarcasm. You promised to love me, cherish me, until death do us part. Instead, you chose her. You chose greed. You chose betrayal. His face flushed crimson. It was a mistake, he stammered. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. A mistake? I laughed, a hollow, bitter sound. You planned this for months. You stole my money, my trust, my happiness. And you call it a mistake? Sarah, realizing the futility of her efforts to escape, turned to Mark, her eyes filled with accusation. This is all your fault, she shrieked. If you hadn't been so greedy, none of this would have happened. Their carefully constructed relationship, built on lies and deceit, began to unravel before my very eyes. They turned on each other, their accusations growing louder, more vicious. I watched them, a sense of detached satisfaction washing over me. They were destroying themselves, and I was merely the catalyst. I pulled out my phone and uploaded the evidence to a secure server, sending an anonymous tip to the authorities, along with copies to every news outlet I could find. The truth would be out soon, and there was nothing they could do to stop it. Within hours, the story exploded. The news headlines screamed their betrayal, their deceit, their treachery. Their faces were plastered across every screen, their reputations shattered beyond repair. Mark's gambling debts were revealed, his shady dealings exposed. Sarah's history of manipulation was laid bare, her carefully crafted image tarnished forever. Their families disowned them, their friends abandoned them, their lives were ruined. The Maldives vacation was cancelled, their fake passports seized, and they were facing multiple charges, including theft, fraud, and conspiracy. Their world had collapsed, and they had no one to blame but themselves. I watched the news coverage from the safety of my apartment, a small smile playing on my lips. The phone rang. It was Mark, his voice desperate, pleading. Please, he begged. You have to stop this. You're destroying us. You destroyed me first, I said, my voice cold and unwavering. Consider this payback. I hung up the phone and turned it off, severing all ties. I walked over to the window and looked out at the city lights, feeling a sense of peace I hadn't felt in a long time. They lost everything. I just smiled. Revenge isn't sweet. It's necessary. Would you have done the same? Let me know in the comments. Subscribe for more justice.